Stockpile Center, if you're familiar with that term at all. Back after World War II, got together with folks and decided that based on what they knew during fighting of World War II, we were short of some materials needed to make weapon systems. So they identified what those materials were, and the Defense National Stockpile Center, or now Strategic Materials Mission, was actually acquire stockpiles of those materials and just them and get them to make more for future events. The Cold War is over. Things change, materials, technology, innovations have a lot of what was actually in the stockpile obsolete. So every year Congress gives us an appropriation or authorization in the Authorization Act to actually dispose of some of that material. So now Strategic Materials is actually disposing of some old raw materials and working toward identifying what the new strategic materials will be for the future. Hard to procure items like titanium, for instance, we're trying to stockpile, and they're trying to figure out what else their mission could morph into, giving the world today and technology today and all the innovations we have. And they're located in headquarters Fort Belvoir, where I am. On the inside, you see a little box that says services. This is services mission that we provide on behalf of the federal government, not just the Department of Defense, not just DLA. As you're all about computers these days, right? A lot of our transactions are electronically based. So the military sends a transmission to us. We send it to a vendor to buy something. They send it back. We get shipment information. All those transactions and the data that moves back and forth is managed by out in the Transaction Services office down in Battle Creek, Michigan. We buy things. We buy a lot of things for the military. The military buys their own things. If you've heard of the General Services Administration, they buy material on behalf of the federal government. All of those items are cataloged, and we have a government catalog that we maintain with the name of an item, its item number, description of it, how much it weighs, all the characteristics of it, a picture, that kind of stuff. All that catalog is managed by the Logistics Information Services out of Battle Creek, Michigan as well. We also have services, which is we're the president's printer. So we're at White House and we're around the world printing on behalf of the president and the military, the Department of Defense, Pentagon, anybody who needs some printing services done. We work in conjunction with the government printing office to execute that mission. So we're big and we're around the world. Now we're going to go into the upper left-hand box with the supply chains in greater detail, which is pretty. Oh no, we're not. First of all, we're going to talk about some numbers. Sorry about that. From FY13. These are our top and by NAICS codes. 13. And you'll see much of those is petroleum, and we have a lot of, because of the war effort, we have a lot of clothing and textiles here as well. The chart is our top 15 vendors by dollar. Again, you see a lot of this. Now my top 15 small business vendors. And my 15 IT vendors.
Amy, can you go back and leave each slide up a little bit longer? Just so that
Back to the first one?
Yes, if you don't mind.
Not a problem.
And for everyone on the call, this is Joe Gravenstein from MBDA Federal Procurement Center. I just make sure everyone knows this. Bottom of the list of the top 15 NAICS IT services is represented 54159.
Joe was.
Amy, if you can just highlight the other IT services, because I'm sure we do have a number of IT companies that are.
Sure. Folks on the webinar, if you look to the fourth one from the bottom, the NAICS 51519, the second called Other Computer-Aided services, $342 million. A lot of the IT services and support that we buy.
And Amy, I'm sorry, one more thing.
No.
If you could just elaborate a little bit. Services buys, obviously, Defense Logistics Agency buys a lot of products, but if you can talk a little bit about the services that you buy. I know it's in some of the slides, but if you, we do have probably the majority of our companies are services companies.
I'll get there.
Thank you very much.
No problem. So, vendors. And our top small business vendors. Top ITers. Our business IT vendors. Okay. So this is a small business spend by PLFA stands for Primary Level Field Activity. It basically is our buying offices. So you see group support spend, most of our spend, energy, land and maritime, and aviation. Those are our big supply chains. And our smaller contracting offices make up the little wedges on the side. And then where we start talking about all of those contracting offices in detail. So troop support. Troop support is located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Most of what they buy is in support of the service as a weapon system. We look at the total person and take care of their needs. So we buy for subsistence, we buy food and produce. We buy all of their dreaded MREs. If there's anybody here that's ever been in the military, you know what that is. Guys, for when they're out in the field and they got to feed about 50 people real fast. We buy that kind of stuff. We also buy fruits and vegetables for some of the underprivileged schools in the United States, and also buy food for the Department of Defense schools around the world. Textile. Fancy way of saying we buy all of their uniforms. The recruit induction center or need to replace that after 10 years in the service, we buy all of the clothing that they wear for all the military services. In addition to that, we also buy what we call their heraldics. So that is, if you've ever seen a military service member in their uniforms, they have their ribbons that they've won and their combat medals and their insignia. We buy all of that as well. We have a mission that we're very proud of in clothing and textile. We call it the Flag Ladies. If you've seen a picture of the president, we're standing and you see the president's flag behind him. We have embroiderers in Philadelphia who hand stitch every single presidential flag you've ever seen. It takes 2 embroiderers 45 days to make one flag for the president. President's flag, vice presidential flags, youth flags, the military flags, state flags. Most of those are hand machine sewn or contracted out at this point, but the president's flags, whether it's his personal flag or his American flag, are always hand stitched. Those ladies do wonderful work. We actually have a few men embroiderers now too. It's novel for us. It used to be all women, so but we're very proud of them. Material on the lower right-hand side, we buy all their pharmaceuticals, all their medical surgical equipment. If you all remember the old TV show called MASH, where they had the mobile medical surgical hospitals and units, we buy and manage all of those as well. We also manage the mail-order pharmacy program. So where you go to your drugstore or your grocery store to pick up your medications, or now with your health care, have mail order, you get your drugs through the mail. We do the same thing for the military members as well. We also have construction and equipment supply chain, which is a lot of the big bulky type of lumber and plywood, special operations equipment, firefighting, life-saving, diving equipment, facilities maintenance equipment, everything that you would lump under construction type of stuff. And they also still buy industrial hardware up in Philadelphia, which is where I first started. And we buy nuts, bolts, rivets, washers, screws, individual little piece part hardware items. Those are all up in Philadelphia. Are there questions on troop support in Philadelphia right now? Okay. The next two supply chains are land and maritime. They are ordered out in Columbus, Ohio. It's mostly in support of Army or land-based weapons systems, tanks, Jeeps, MRAPs, Humvees, those types of equipment. Maritime, obviously, is for ships, not just the Navy, all ships. So we individual replacement parts, replenishment parts, is to go on those ships during a repair or a maintenance cycle. We don't actually buy the weapons system. I buy a tank. I don't buy a ship. The military does that. We just buy the things that they need to sustain operation of those weapons systems as they go through their life cycle. We have a couple initiatives on the left-hand side. Tires privatization. The BRAC 2005 legislation, Congress asked us to, if you've watched 60 Minutes, I'm sure somebody has seen about 15 years ago, one of those snippets that they did on 60 Minutes with rows and rows and rows of old tires in a warehouse. We matched the tires. Those just happened to have been Army tires at the time, but there's tires now. So they asked us to get all those tires out of the warehouse. There's no need to stockpile all that stuff. And you could just go to Goodrich or Michelin and buy them when you need them. So we put a tire privatization contract in place where we have contracted with all the tire manufacturers to get really good prices for the military. And we have also contracted with a third-party logistician who manages all that. So whenever a military member needs a tire, they go to this third-party logistician. He goes through all of our contracts that we've already negotiated to get the material for the military. So as part of the BRAC law, as was depot-level reparables. In the real world, we would call that repairable, but the military has their own language, so called DLRs for short. I buy consumables. I buy 6 million items. Repair are things like you would normally think that can be repaired if they down and then would continue back in use. When it's to a point that it's so old and it's so beat up it can no longer be repaired, then the military sends that requisition to LA now as part of the BRAC, and we buy the new one for them. They still contract for the repair. We do new procurement, which was a big change. And as part of BRAC, retail supply, storage, and distribution. Look at DLA at our warehouse structure as like a wholesale business. The military still held levels of inventory of some of the same stock that we manage and hold in the depots, and they call that retail assets. As part of BRAC, we actually took over management of those retail level assets as well. So we're trying to manage them in conjunction with the wholesale level inventory to save money, not have duplicate inventory, that type of thing. So we're working that. And that land and maritime as well as aviation down in Richmond, Virginia. So they do DLRs as well. They have a supply, storage, and distribution mission. And in addition to buying all of the engine components and aircraft components for each of the military services and the Coast Guard, they also do the BRAC privatization for land and maritime tires. Aviation has gases and cylinders and chemicals and petroleums, oils, and lubricants as well. Contract those. Also, the MAPS mission you see on the screen down there in Richmond. I remember watching Top Gun, and you saw the pilots when they got in their planes, and they had a flap on their lap. They opened up their flap, and there was a map of the terrain coming up. So we do all the maps that the military uses to do their missions, whether they're topographical, geographical, maps, all those kinds of things. We used to store hundreds of paper maps. Now we're getting into digitalized maps, and that's really exciting for DLA too. So that's down in Richmond. So any questions on land, maritime, or aviation? Okay. It is a big one. We're executive agent for the Department of Defense for energy, which means we buy petroleum, gasoline, diesel fuel, home heating oil. Most of what we buy is jet fuel. On the global chart, the statistics chart you saw where we had about $40 billion in sales last year, was $20 billion of that was just jet fuel alone. There's a problem in the petroleum refining industry though, because if you go back to the NAICS codes, the size standards, those are either employee-based, usually 500 to 1,000 type of things. If it's a service industry, it's revenue-based. You have more than $25 million revenue in a year, or you're a large business, or other than small. Energy, petroleum refining is different. They have a three standard to meet. It's 1,500 employees, including all affiliates. You can't refine more than 125,000 barrels of crude per day, and you have to refine 91% of it in-house yourself. There are currently three jet fuel refiners in the United States, and we have one, a Native Alaska Native Corporation. That's other than small, but for the language, it's considered small. But we have three legitimate small business, small fuel refiners. Because the small business refineries, there's one out in the Midwest that has about 203 people that actually do the refining, but the company itself owns 2 all-inclusive resorts in the Caribbean. It's all affiliates, you include everyone, so that makes them a other than small business. So we can't compete for our small business set-aside contracts. So what we do is we start solicitations where we set aside the most capacity that the small businesses can handle. We give them everything they can handle, and then we compete the rest with other than small businesses because we have no choice. If you want to almost guarantee yourself government business, open up a refinery and start making jet fuel. I know it sounds funny, but we're always going to buy jet fuel. We bought $20 billion last year. We're on track to buy $20 billion more of it this year. The Air Force always flies. The Navy flies. The Coast Guard flies. They're not going to stop their flying mission, right? I know huge capital investment. Last week I got a phone call from a woman. I went to the Women's Chamber of Commerce small procurement event 18 months ago, and I said the same thing to them there, and they laughed at me too, which is fine. But she called me and she said, you know, I took what you said. I never forgot what you said. So she spent the last 18 months trying to get together a team of investors, and they found a refinery that's willing to sell. She's got some investors, and they're really thinking about doing it.
Wow.
So I hooked them up with my energy folks at Fort Belvoir to see if they can make it happen. And if nothing else, that'll give us one more small business refinery. But I can give them part of the business because my procurement strategy, where I give them 100% capacity first before anything else to anybody else. So it can refinery make jet fuel. I realized this until I started looking into our energy business. But when you get a barrel of crude, they don't take one whole barrel and make jet fuel out of it, or one whole barrel and make gasoline out of it. They apportion parts of each barrel for types of petroleum. So a portion of a barrel will go to making diesel fuel, gasoline, home heating oil, and only 10% of a barrel goes to making jet fuel. So which buys me. I need jet fuel manufacturers, guys. Jet fuel manufacturers. We also buy utilities for the military services, and pretty much that's limited to electricity. So we'll negotiate with cities and states to actually provide the electricity for the bases that are located in the region. We buy rocket fuel for NASA. We're looking into alternative fuels and bio-based fuels, that type of thing. So we're doing some R&D in that area as well. So that's energy. Any questions there?
Amy, I'm sorry, for the people on the phone, would you mind repeating the question, because they're not going to be able to hear the people asking the questions? Thank you.
The gentleman asked me to define renewable energy. For us, in concert with fuels, that is looking for whether it's solar energy, different avenues other than electricity to power things.
The equipment and the installation services.
And how you get product moving through a line different does today, whether you have to have a fuel pump that's powered by electricity versus a gravity movement system, different types of things, as well as the different types of biofuels, ethanol versus corn versus, whatever else is out there. Okay.
What is the process? Is the whole process once you find new refineries, new companies, as far as getting the product in front of you on your list of one of the four, as opposed to one of the three now? What is the process?
Sure. What you stake claim and you start making jet refining it. You look for the solicitations when they hit FedBiz Ops, like every other company, and just an offer as a small business. Normally, because the industry is so small for jet fuel, energy folks know all the refiners are because they deal with them on a steady basis. So even before a solicitation is issued, I recommend that you just give the small business director at DLA Energy, whose name is Greg Seven, a phone call and say, just so you know, we're in business, our doors are open, and we're making jet fuel, so we're looking forward to the next solicitation. And they will put you on the list to make sure you get a copy of the solicitation. I have his phone number up here.
Solar power. Are you doing anything with that?
In the R&D area right now, we're not doing much in terms of providing solar energy to anyone that I'm aware of, because most of all the bases that we contract with now for electricity, their infrastructure is all very old and all based on electricity, or in some cases we're still buying coal to take the bases because they're still heated with coal.
Solar systems small solar systems out there that are portable that they use to pump water, or they can use it for a small generator or something like that. And I don't know whether you want to install it.
We're interested in every innovation. So again, in here, phone number for my small business director at Energy.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I went to a small business event a month ago, and a gentleman showed me a portable solar charger for USB port for anything you would need, and about half the size of this. It was like a card, and it was lightweight, and you just plugged it in. It would power your phone, your iPad, whatever you needed when you didn't have any place else to plug it into. I was like, sign me up, I'll take one of them. So I referred him to PEO Soldier on Fort Belvoir. They're the people that do redevelopment on outfit a soldier with to keep them safe and operating as efficiently as they can. So,
Can we ask if there are any questions on the webinar?
Sure.
Take a break in case anyone's trying to jump in.
Is there anyone on the call who would like to ask a question?
Barker from Rivera Group. Are you a copy of the slides available today?
This is Joe Grabenstein. We will have the entire presentation recorded and available on our website, and we'll send you the information about that after the presentation. We also, Amy brought with her opportunities which are not in the presentation. We have those, and they're on paper right now, but we scan those, and we're going to be sending those to you by email, either during the presentation or immediately after the presentation, and that everyone on the webinar a copy of the opportunities that Amy will be discussing.
Anybody else on the call? Okay. So that DLA distribution, I mentioned our network of 28 distribution depots. A small contracting office located in New Cumberland, Pennsylvania, who's contracting in support of operations of the depots themselves. They buy cardboard boxes, they buy shrink wrap, they buy tape, peanuts, pallets, everything to pack and ship material. They also buy material actually keep the depots operating, so they buy shelving, they buy the mechanized equipment that moves material from the receiving dock to a storage location. They buy big electronic automated equipment that actually goes up and picks something off of a shelf and takes it down and drops it in a box, that type of thing. Also DLA is not actually chartered to do construction. And by construction, I mean doing something from architectural plans from the ground up. We call maintenance and repair. So for the buildings that we own, because we're a tenant on military service installations, but for those things that we own, we've been contracting for roofing a building, modernizing a bathroom or a restroom, making some offices bigger or smaller, replace perimeter fence, paving a parking lot, that type of stuff up there. We do all IT-related services contracting and distribution for operation of the distribution mission itself, the mechanization of the equipment that moves material in the buildings. And that's distribution. Any questions on that? I'll talk a little bit more in depth about the IT services buying on a slide in a minute or two. And you'll see the difference. I'll make sure you understand the difference between what they do here and what their contracting office does for IT. The services, I mentioned that earlier, when the military is done with a piece of equipment and they don't need it anymore, they turn it into disposition services, and we figure out what to do with it next. In most cases, we'll see if there's another military unit that needs it. If they do, we'll give it to them. Have a program where we donate material to state and local agencies such as departments, police departments, those types of things. Material. If the military doesn't need it and we up and the states and local governments don't need it, then it just goes to disposal. When it goes actually into disposal, if it's a military weaponized system, we'll demilitarize it, take all the fancy bells and whistles and the secret things out of it, and then sell the balance for scrap, or we give, depending on what it is, if it's office equipment, office furniture, we'll get to a third-party contractor who goes out and then resells that and gives us a portion of the profits, and then we split it with those folks. We're also the hazardous manager for the Department of Defense. So if anyone in the Department of Defense has hazardous waste material that they turn into us, we manage that process as well. So if you're on a military base and they have a storage location for paint cans, for paint center, for different types of and all things that are classified as hazardous material, we manage that inventory. We'll dispose of the inventory. We also do radiation. If there's a spill, we'll contract to have someone come in and investigate what kind of a spill was it, what spilled, where did it spill, how much spilled, did it spill on concrete or did it spill into the ground? If it was on the ground, how far down did it go? How much soil do we have to remove and then replace with? And then we contract for the actual remediation work itself. Just in a nutshell. And on that,
concerning the hazardous, does that include nuclear as well?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
DLA Contracting Services Office. So, our office that I just talked about, established to buy the material that the military needs to do their jobs. This services office, located in Philadelphia, was established to buy the services that DLA needs to do its job. Support operations needs to do job. If that by IT services and support, they do any facilities maintenance contracting like landscape services and janitorial services. They services contracting for any knowledge-based services that we might need, like a Denison survey, or a culture climate survey, or an HR staffing model development, consulting services, logistics, those types of things are out of this contracting office in Philadelphia. Now, IT stuff and those other services, with that for the DLA offices that need that support. If any of the military services need similar support, by their own IT, their own web-based services, all that kind of stuff. So the office just supports DLA's internal operations. And we're $40 billion in sales last year. Was only about 3% of our overall spend. So its main mission in contracting is buying material for the military. This is a very small portion of what we spend. So the distribution, where we just talked about the IT services there, the equipment that runs the depot, like the machines that pick the material off of the receiving dock and move it along conveyor belts to a location, and a big arm comes and puts it up on a shelf, that's all done by computers. The distribution buys the software, the hardware, and the maintenance for that equipment only. All IT services, whether it's replacing a laptop on a box desk to cloud technology, is purchased out of the contracting office in Philadelphia for all of DLA, including the distribution sites. So that's a distinction there. Joe?
I'm sorry, Amy, if you could clarify, you just made a comment that these types of services are a small portion of what DLA spends. Primarily you buy products, but you spend almost $40 billion a year, so the services is still a significant amount of spend.
Right.
Relative
right.
to the overall spend, it's a small portion, but for the companies that do services, you spend a significant amount on services.
Oh, yeah. It's, when you're $3 billion, you almost get immune to the fact that $150 million is peanuts compared to that. But I mean, it is a lot of money. I mean, yeah, I recognize that. So while it's only 3% of our total spend, it is money.
Can make a lot of small businesses very happy.
And it could, very much so, very much so. So, question on IT or services contracting that DLA does before we move on? Fine.
And about internal logistics and translation services, some of the other types of services that you haven't discussed that DLA buys. Do they are they purchased out of this office?
DLI translation services.
No translation?
Our state does that.
Okay, I saw that.
We did buy some of that for when we first went into Iraq.
Okay.
Because we were the logistics organization in Iraq. We've turned that entire mission over to the Department of State.
Okay.
So we pulled out, state moved in. So they're doing that type of stuff now. What was the other mention?
Well, there are a number of
logistics.
companies that MBDA works with that specialize in export services and are experienced in international logistics and training for example, cultural training for U.S. citizens doing business abroad. Do you have needs for those types of services?
No, we don't contract for that. Because we're located where we are, especially in the area of responsibility now over in Afghanistan. In an effort to help the people of Afghanistan, just like the people of Iraq, Congress issued requests for us to actually contract with local business as much as possible for what we can while we're there. So, as part of our subsistence mission in Afghanistan, we're buying fresh fruits and produce locally. We buy bottled water locally. We'll buy lumber locally. Those types of things. But from an import, most of what we buy locally where we can, United Transportation Command is responsible for moving it from point B. Most of point A is here in the United States. There are some things, as you can imagine, for what reason, some members of the military prefer Heinz ketchup over Kraft, and they don't. Nobody else's ketchup. So we have to, as part of morale, make sure they get what they want. So a lot of that stuff has to come from here. Transcom has the infrastructure to move the materials, so we don't connect with any vessels that don't fly the American flag. We're prohibited by statute from actually contracting with them. So there's a lot of places that we can't indeed do. The services you mentioned, the Department of State usually does most of that stuff.
Just before the aviation flag. Just before. To Joe's question, logistics, and land, who contracts to move the equipment back from Afghanistan and Iraq back to
a disposition services mission. So we're with all the military right now in Afghanistan to identify what's asked to what they need to continue their mission, given the drama, what they take back, what they don't want to take back, what are we going to do with it. Some we're giving to the Afghani people, some of which sell to other countries, some of which scrap on site so you don't have to pay the cost of bringing it back to then turn around and scrap it once it gets here. The contracting for all that. And it's millions of dollars.
And for the services that DLA buys, do you have requirements for secret or top secret cleared companies or personnel? And if so, what percentage of your services require secret clearance or top secret clearance?
None.
Okay.
None. If I know DLA has some requirements for those. There's to me.
Okay.
You know, I'm not privy to any of that as well. We do have a logistics operations center that works with our folks over in theater as well as the military customers in theater, and for those types of environments, they contract with whoever does that on behalf of DLA. I don't know who that is.
Okay. And MBDA does represent a number of companies that have security clearances, but as you're I'm sure aware, the vast majority of small businesses don't have security clearances, so that's good to know.
Right.
There are many opportunities for small businesses.
One of the hardest things that we have to deal with, especially when you're dealing with services contracting in the IT realm, is the information assurance requirements for it's the clearance does to call it, but it's something that we have to go through where it's called a Category 2 information assurance approval versus Category 1, and a Category 2 is the most stringent.
Okay.
That you have passed some type of allow you into the DLA network itself on different projects we have if you don't have that approval, that clearance. And it's not a security clearance as we're used to knowing the term. It's an information assurance process that they go through. And some companies can't pass that screening, which is very difficult.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, the logistics from, I understand, the 19.7 contracting applicable, or is it the subcontracting part of the
It depends on acquisition itself and the value of the acquisition and the strategy. Not everything requires a subcontracting plan. Contracting with a small business, I don't need a subcontracting plan. If it's below a certain threshold, I don't need it.
Above 650 million.
Right.
Uh-huh.
650,000. Yeah. Yeah, whenever we have a requirement, like because we know we're going to have a lot coming back from Afghanistan, I'm pretty sure that the folks in disposition are putting together a large contract to handle that remediation work. It would breach the threshold of 650,000. So part of that, where the FAR requires a subcontracting plan, we will have one. We do a lot of, in this contracting services office, because the requirements that we deal with are very large and over time. Instead of doing a normal large business with subcontracting requirements for small business, encourage our vendors to establish contract teaming arrangements where they agree amongst themselves who will play in the requirements in the contract, who act as the lead for the program. But then each contractor in the team gets their own contract with DLA for their portion of the project. Excuse me. And that ensures that each of the team members get their own prime contract. You have your own past performance information for next time. So your record with DLA as having been a DLA provider and a supplier, have that past performance information that we use for the next time, as it being an unknown, or subcontract to someone who may give you subcontract work, right? So that's the benefit that we have in our contracting services office, and the folks that we've done that teaming arrangement with really seem to like it. So, anything else? Anything on the phone? Okay. Next. Has anybody heard of the Procurement Technical Assistance Program?
Yes.
Procurement Technical Assistance Centers?
I'll let you know, we, MBDA business centers refer a lot of companies to the PTACs. And,
Okay.
In fact, our business center is run by the Metropolitan Economic Development Association of Minneapolis, and we run a PTAC in Minneapolis, as
Good.
well as an MBDA center in Minneapolis and this center.
Good.
So, very familiar with PTACs. It's a great program.
What is that program?
Okay.
On behalf of the Department of Defense, Congress issued a statute entitled to establish the Procurement Technical Assistance Program, and assigned that program to the Department of Defense, and in the statute itself it says that DLA will actually run the program. So that's out of my office, and we issue cooperative agreements to centers, as Joe just mentioned, to establish Procurement Technical Assistance Centers. And those centers are established, we have about 94 of them now, I think, in 49 states, the District of Columbia, Guam, and Puerto Rico. The only cover right now is Kentucky, but that's going to change shortly, I think. Of those centers is to help established businesses who are interested in contracting with the government get government contracts. Not just federal government, all government, state and local as well, not just small business contractors, all vendors, regardless of business size. Do things like navigate the solicitation, offer, and award process, helping you put together your GSA schedule application package. They do bid matching for you. They'll figure out how to help you download drawings off of an electronic website and how to upload your proposal. Their mission is free of charge for the most part to clients. If matching services are requested, some techs charge a very nominal fee to help you do that. For the most part, it's free. And the source for you to just sit and ask questions. If you're really unfamiliar with the intricacies of the FAR, which is this thick and could confuse one, they're there for you. So I want you to who your PTAC is and take advantage of them any chance you can. You go to the DLA Small Business website, and there's a map of the United States on there, and you click on the map and it'll tell you who your PTAC is. Name, address, phone number, website will all be listed there. Where the MBDA has small business development centers whose job it is to help you establish a business. They'll help you figure out what your business plan is, what your niche is, have an accounting system, all that kind of stuff to get a business going. Once you're going, our PTACs, like development centers here, can you further your business in the area that you want to go. They're a very good resource, and I use them as much as possible. Everybody with Federal Business Opportunities website where the solicitations are posted, right? That's required for everything above $150,000. Most of our buys are below $150,000, so we have our DLA Internet Bid Board system, which is we post all of those solicitations. Above $150,000 is on here as well, but most of this is dedicated to the stuff below $150,000. It's all electronic, so you can set up an account and it's free of charge. To identify solicitations, you submit an offer electronically, you would get an award electronically, you would download drawings electronically. All of that is resident in the DIB system. Here, not on the screen, but when you get to the home page of this, if you scroll a little bit on the left-hand side, there'll be a box for something that says Supplier Vendor Requirements Analysis. That's just a fancy way of saying that's our procurement forecast. On that and go in by NSN or NAICS code, and it'll tell you what our requirement is for the next 24 months out, quarter. How many of each we plan buying each quarter. System has a really nice feature to it that your PTACs can help with. We have what we call alerts in here. So if you make rubber flip-flops that has a specific NSN to it, you can go in the system and set up alert for the NAICS code and the NSN for rubber flip-flops. So when a solicitation hits, you'll email that says, DLA just posted a solicitation for this item. Here's the solicitation number. Go look at it. As to having somebody at your company sit there and just scroll through all the solicitations we post on a daily basis to figure out which ones interest you. You have the people in your companies to do that. And it's kind of a waste of time, you know. So the system does it for you, and the PTACs can help you set those alerts up. If you're a company that makes 500 different items, they can help you set an alert for all 500. It's a benefit to having somebody there and scroll through screens every day, right? So that's the system.
Would you consider all the procurements under $150,000 to be simplified acquisitions, and what are the requirements for small business participation for those simplified acquisitions?
They are usually simplified acquisitions. There are some things that we would award under a contract, depending on what it is, but for the most part, they're just simplified acquisitions awarded on a purchase order. And the rules of small business apply. Okay. Any $150,000 is automatically by statute set aside for small business. So to the extent that we can, right, everything is. But because
it's not always practical.
It's not always practical, and because we buy what we buy a lot of piece parts and replenishment parts for weapon systems. Mm-hmm. All times when those weapon systems are fielded, the report list that goes with them, because it's made by, let's say, Boeing, a plane made by Boeing, all the replacement parts package when they gave us the plane.
Right.
And I said, when you have to buy a replacement part, this is the part number that you need to buy to replace it. And we don't for any of that stuff. All we have is the Boeing part number. So in situations, we still to this day have to buy the replacement part from Boeing or somebody that Boeing said is authorized to sell that part to us on their behalf. In some cases, while I will set it aside for small business, I'm awarding it to Boeing because I have no choice. Right?
Yes, coincidentally, one of our clients is a subcontractor to Boeing and manufactures aircraft parts for Boeing.
Right.
It's a tribally owned business.
Yeah. There are some of those parts now that over time we have gotten other small businesses approved to manufacture and provide those items. On the item description itself in the product purchase request, it'll say, with Boeing company, part number so-and-so, approved sources, and it'll list the small business sources and their cage code and their part number that we're allowed to buy. But for the part, as the rules require, every below 150 is set aside for small business. Okay? This is just some useful information that I'm here to help folks. $10,000, estimated to be above $10,000. We're required to submit a 2579 form, which is just a small business coordination form. That when the buyer decides what his acquisition strategy is going to be, if it's not supposed to, if they plan not setting it aside for small business, it has to be reviewed by a level above the contracting officer. It has to be reviewed by a procurement representative from the Small Business Administration that sits with our contracting folks. And for the most part, the requirement that it goes to some that is $25,000, but for today we dropped that down to $10,000. So anything $10,000 and above that's not expected to go to small business, we have a thorough review process for that. And if we overturn the contracting officer's decision and make them go small business, and that's part of my review, is they review those forms and look at the acquisition strategy and look at the procurement history and do the market research to say, I think we have like 5 small business companies that could perform adequately on this solicitation. So here's your list. Let's go small business. That's very good. And most of other folks, their threshold's $25,000. So there's that $15,000 gap that nobody's looking at that we are. Six is Office Imaging and Document Solutions. MOBIS contract, which is professional services, like not-based services that we talked about a little bit before. Ability One, is everybody familiar with Ability One?
Yes.
Those folks on the phone, Ability One are the parent organization in support of the National Industries of the Blind, Source America, which used to be called the National Nearly Handicapped. There are requirements of some things that have to go to them for permits, so we support them as much as possible. Most of that is in the clothing and textile area in DLA. And then they also have office supplies. We just issued a couple of years ago the first contract to one of the Ability One organizations to do Tier 1 help desk support. So now that they have that contract, it's on the mandatory procurement list, so everybody else who needs Tier 1 help desk support is required by law to go to Ability One. And they do mostly all of our facilities management contracts. So most of that is our janitorial services, but they also have snack bars and our eating shops and our barbers and some other things as well. And we're in a long time converting a lot of long-term contracts to small business. In the day, it was easier just to the large business. We're making sure that when those contracts come up for recompete, they're small business as much as we can. All that stuff? Okay. This is just things to consider when you're you're running your business going forward. It might be some, not to others. Just take from it what you can. Target specific agencies, especially in the Department of Defense, to figure out what group of people does what. The hardest thing is to figure out where you need to go, who you should be talking to. One can and talk to as many people within that organization as you can, and to know the folks. They'll get to know you, and once you generate that relationship, it's easier to help you market yourself to the rest of the agency. And that's part of what my job is as a small business director, is to help you market, right? And to help, if I know you, they market other people. Continuing your marketing, keep your SAM profile updated. Utilize the sources sought notices or requests for information. If you see them and they apply to you, give your comments. Give your thoughts. A lot of times when the federal government issues sources sought or requests for information, that's because we don't have a strategy in mind. We don't know where we're going to go yet. We know to do something. We know we have something. We know we have a gap we need to fill. We don't know how to do that yet. So when they're issued for legitimate purposes, then your insight and help which way to go, because usually you're the folks that are going to actually do it when we contract for it, right? So, pre-proposal conferences and debriefing. You know, if the solicitation has a pre-proposal conference, go and hear what they have to say. If you don't get an award, go to briefing and say, you know, what worked, what didn't work, what was deficient in my proposal, what did you see in oral presentation that I could do better next time. Continue to figure out how to improve presentation of your offer. The next one, never say we do everything, create a niche. Right across a lot of companies that say we do everything. Very frank, that says you know your strong suit is yet. You have figured out your niche. You figured out where your passion lies and where you want to focus your company on. You may be very proficient at doing 25 things, but you're proficient at doing things that I don't need to contract for. I'm happy for you. It doesn't help me. So know your audience, right? And talk about those 2 or 3 things of your 25 that I just said interest you. I was at an event like this a year ago out in Lewis. I gave pretty much the same talk we just went through today, and folks wanted to talk to one-on-one when I was done. So this woman stood there for about 45 minutes waiting to talk to me, and when she came up to me and she said, I really enjoyed your talk. I think I'm a really good fit for you. I think I have what you need. And I said, what do you do? And she is a large animal rehabilitation specialist. There are all kinds of questions about what that meant and how does working with horses do, and horses, you know, I don't need horses. I couldn't figure out what in what I said led her to believe that I needed those types of services, right? So focus on what we need and help you focus. Now, I did point her in the right direction. I gave her the first service. I gave her some other folks to go talk to, which has been what she was after all along. I've been able to help in figuring out who she should talk to. And in which right?
Excuse me, but I seem to have a blank screen with a cursor running up and down here and don't see any of your charts right at the current time.
Well,
There they just came back on. Okay, we're done now.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So that's the continuous marketing section. And under managed contracts, just, read all the fine print, and do your best, do what you're tracked for. If we have delivery on June 1st, deliver first, You know what to do when you have a contract. You hear the terms and conditions of the contract and do what you're going to do. So, just some thoughts from me.
Hey, I'm
yeah.
sorry, can we go back to that slide? This is again from the MBDA Federal Procurement Center. Regarding, this is fantastic advice for companies marketing to ELA. For companies that have followed your advice and done the homework and are prepared to market to delay, if they're not getting receptivity from program staff or procurement staff and they want the opportunity to market directly to ELA staff, is that something that your office can help with? Can you facilitate meetings and introductions?
At each of my contracting activities that I talked about, an associate director for a small business and staff, and the job is to do exactly what you just said. In addition to everything I just said we do, their job is to do the same thing, but they also support operational contracting. So they're the ones that are actually reviewing those 2579 forms to make sure that we're doing small business set-asides when we need to. But they also facilitate getting together with the contracting to identify and to help market companies to our actual buyers. So that, and then, the folks on the phone don't have the booklet, but the book here has the small business phone number for each of those offices. I also have this other sheet that you can give. Maybe you can scan this too, because that has all of their names and phone numbers on it as well. So if you're interested in something for support in Philadelphia, Mike McCall is my associate director, and his name and phone number is on this sheet. So we can send that out too.
Well, after the presentation is over, we will be making electronically available all of the documents. Amy has brought a booklet and also a list of opportunities, and then a couple of other documents that we will make available to everyone on the webinar. So I apologize we didn't have those available in advance, but we will get those to you shortly after the webinar.
That's good. Where are we next? This is just a resources slide, different websites. So the first one is my website. It includes all the small business directors we just talked about. Their site for the procurement technical assistance centers. Go on the website, get the map, find your state, and you'll find your tax. The system pages there, you can set up your account. Small business administration, you should all be familiar with them. The federal OSDBU directors listing, that's just a list of all the friends and their small business folks. Secretary of Defense small business website over in the Pentagon. So the websites that will help you navigate the process of doing business with the federal government. And I'll leave that up for a couple seconds until people write them.
Also, we will be posting this PowerPoint presentation on our website so that when you have a copy of the PowerPoint, you'll be able to click on those links to take you directly to those websites.
And I think the next page is just my small business website. Feel free to call me anytime. You. From the folks on the phone?
My name is Ron with Set Time Services in Houston. I've got a question about the small business site. You're talking about less than 150,000. Do you guys have any drill down numbers of how many of those buys fall into that category in the IT arena, or is that probably too granular?
The number of awards.
I guess dollar amount would be fine.
I have that with me, but I can certainly get it. We do have that available back at home.
I'll send you an email asking for that. Oh, thank you very much, ma'am.
You're looking for the number of actions and value of IT awards, 50,000. Okay. Send that to Joe, and then he
Yeah.
send it out to everyone.
We'll distribute that to everyone on the call, and
Okay.
well,
Okay, I do that.
Hey, great presentation. Great presentation. Wonderful.
Thank you.
and folks, we're not done yet. Amy will be talking about specific opportunities, and again, those of you joining us by webinar will not be able to see opportunities. They're actually here on paper, but we will send those to you immediately after the presentation.
So, for the
Yeah,
question,
one.
Sure.
Thanks again for your presentation.
you're
Do
welcome.
you facilitate, we're in the DOD and, Office Secretary. You know, in the services, we're strictly
First area.
service area.
I have
So
a,
we get,
I have a,
So let me repeat the question. The question is, can DLA facilitate meetings with their prime contractors for MBDA clients, small and minority-owned businesses?
Associate Director of Small Business up in my IT Contracting Services office. Her name is Rosita Carastella, and she holds business roundtables once a quarter for companies interested in expanding their subcontractor base. So we get a group of 1 or 2 large businesses, and we'll bring maybe 10 small businesses to have a very intimate conversation with Rosita, where she makes the introductions of everybody, and then they each talk about their capabilities, and the large business will talk about their needs, and she tries to marry them up and create relationships with folks, and then it's up to whether they continue that or not. But she does facilitate that quarterly basis.
so it's important then to get in touch with.
Rosita.
So she knows who we are.
Right.
So that small business, that's by invitation only?
Yes. She is our go-to for anything IT and services related. She has worked with that office. She sits right next to the chief of the office with the contracting folks, and she knows all the requirements intimately. She's in.
What is Rosita's last name again?
Carosella, Carosella.
Can we get her address?
Her phone number is 703. I'm sorry, her phone number is 215 7 She is 8 years old. Anything?
Yep.
I have a question. This is Mal McGee, Muskogee Technology, a manufacturer. And my question is nomenclature of all the parts that are out there being purchased. On our end to search for those opportunities, is there a source to look at how the government use different nomenclatures to classify? I know you got the NSNs with all the different numbers there, but is nomenclature like a bracket, a map, or things like that?
If you go into if I understand your question correctly, if you go under the DIB system, identify solicitations or requirements, you can search by nomenclature.
Yeah, but my question is that how do I better understand if I have staff that is out searching? How do I better understand the nomenclature process or format of the government?
Select the nomenclature. How do nomenclature given item.
Right.
Okay. That's it. Logistics Information Services folks in Battle Creek, Michigan, actually manage the contract, the catalog for all of the items, and they're the ones that actually assign the nomenclature to them. So I can find out the answer from them and get to you.
It's just, it would be better to refine a search. You understanding of all the nomenclatures you use. I might be missing a lot of opportunities if I'm searching by nomenclature and not calling the part the right part.
Yeah, like I know the FedLog is the online system, or the online federal catalog. You go in FedLog and ask for vehicle jacks, and all the SNs will come up that we have in the catalog for a vehicle jack. And when you look at each of those items, it'll tell you it's a vehicle jack for a Humvee, vehicle jack for a Toyota pickup truck. But call vehicle jack something else in the catalog and gave it a different NSN. I don't know about that. I don't know how you would go about trying to figure that out, but I'll ask the question.
Okay.
All I could do is tell me, go away. But I'll try to get you an answer.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is Joe Grabenstein. Can you tell Amy a little bit about your relationship with Boeing and the Mentor Protege program and your success? I think it'd be helpful for everyone on the call to hear a little bit about your story, because it is a great story.
Yes, I will. We're a tri-log company in South Alabama. We've been in business probably 26 years. We did, back in the 80s, we probably 99 or 98% delay. We provided a lot of parts for DLA, ship hardware, tank hardware, just a lot of assortment of all kind of manufactured parts. As the times went forward, we had to transition. We transitioned to doing a lot of work with the Air Force. We did a lot of work with the Air Force and their missile bombs, container shipping hardware, and that was more in the 90s. And then after going into the 2000s, the transition of bundling and all the government people saying you need to go towards and market the major prime contractors. So I did that. I went and directed my effort towards the Boeings, the Lockheed Martins, and those BAEs and all those type folks. And we were successful in approaching Boeing. We signed a mentor-protege agreement with Boeing. They helped us upgrade our quality system. And we today provide parts for Boeing for the rotorcraft division. We have parts on the space station through Boeing. So it's allowed us to grow our capabilities but now we had to jump across a lot of bridges to do that, getting a quality system up in place, getting our equipment list up, the equipment that we needed. A lot of processes had to be improved. But we are doing that today. However, the government cutbacks, sequestration, a lot of those things are starting to affect that business. So we're now starting to scramble toward the commercial side of the business, looking to companies like Caterpillar and other companies like that. So I'm back looking at DLA as a source of revenue because we have capacity that we need to fill. We're only probably 30% capacity, and I need to get those machines running. So I'm back looking at DLA as a source of supply to fill my machines up. However, what I'm finding is very competitive, and again, to understand, making sure that we're finding the opportunities that are out there and making sure that we're looking in the right places to get those opportunities.
One of the things you could do, his name is Mel.
Mel.
One of the things you could do is visit our DLA Aviation Small Business Office in Richmond, Virginia. They have, and anybody else can set up an appointment and visit as well, if you're a manufacturer of parts. They have a room set up where have on display items that DLA does not have any manufacturing sources for.
Really?
That we're looking for folks to make the items for us. You could actually go in, pick it up, look at it, feel it. There's information on, the SIN, the name, the catalog, all the catalog information, what it's made of, that type of, the specifications, that kind of thing.
Where is this located?
Virginia, but manufacturing sources for it, and the room is full of stuff. So maybe you'll be able to, take 70% capacity you have available and put you back to work.
That's a very good idea, very good information there. Joe, it might be something where we kind of do something as a group to where DLA will open and provide some buyers and stuff. That would be a good place to have a little conference. I don't know if you could have a little conference like that to be able to do that.
We certainly will.
Yeah, absolutely. My small business director there, his name is John Henley, and he would welcome the opportunity.
And MBDA has a nationwide working group called the Advanced Manufacturing Working Group, and we're working with manufacturers, so this would be perfect. What is the name of the facility again in Richmond?
DLA.
DLA Aviation. One thing that I wanted to mention to everyone on the call, and also to you, Amy, is MBDA provides that is kind of unique. We can work with your large prime contractors and help them to find minority-owned subcontractors and small business subcontractors, and do that while they can remain anonymous so that they're not putting the word out to their competitors what type of team they're putting together and what type of procurements they're going after.
They're very secretive about that kind of stuff.
They're very secretive about that, and
Yeah.
it's hard for a company like Boeing or Lockheed or any large business or even small businesses to put together a team of small businesses without disclosing to their competition what they're doing.
Right.
We do that for a number of companies now. We'll put out the word to the MBDA Business Center Network. We reach over 4,000 businesses, and then we collect names of companies, points of contact information, and capability statements, and send that directly to the company. So U.S. Agency for International Development has asked us to go next month to present to their 50 prime contractors, to present that service to them and help them to grow their subcontracting numbers.
That's great.
To help these businesses need help reaching their small business subcontracting goals, and we want to make it as easy as possible, and at the same time we're creating more opportunities for the companies MBDA represents.
Thank you. DLA welcome any opportunity to expand our small business vendor base, especially in the four socioeconomic subcategories where we're obviously,
Hey, so this is Ken Trammell with Bowhead. I just sent a link to everyone that was on the meeting invitation there to DLA's D-List website. You can search on the Federal Supply Group, Federal Supply class and everything, and help you to find those parts that you might be needing and what FSC and so on that they're listed in.
Thank you. Back to Mel. Your Mel, this list might be able to help you.
Thank you.
Was that Ken from Bowhead?
Correct.
You sent also to me, Joe Grabenstein at
I actually sent it, I think, to everyone that was on the invitation there. It was real all. Have it, Joe.
Thank you.
Should we tell them opportunities?
Oh, please.
The list, I put the folks on the phone, but when it's set, you will see list upcoming solicitations by the different supply chains that we talked about earlier. Just some things for you to keep your eyes out and to look out for. For our contracting services office, those folks familiar with government contracting know what the rule of two means, right? To be able to set something aside for small business, I have to have at least small business manufacturers independently offer before we can set it aside for small business. And in the IT realm, you know that laptops, computers, iPads, all that stuff is made by companies that are large businesses that are not considered small businesses. So we indeed have a lot of need for laptops and new computers and iPhones and tablets and docking stations and regular computer desktop support. We went to, but there's a lot of small business dealers and distributors that provide those. So they'll provide, you know, the HP product, the Dell, the Gateways, all that stuff. So we went to the Small Business Administration and asked for a waiver to the non-manufacturing rule, if you're familiar with what that means. And SB said yes, they gave it to us. So they have a very large solicitation about to be issued for what we're calling the DLA Enterprise-Wide Personal Computing Program. If you're looking on my hand, it's page 3, the second one on page 3. The name assigned to that was 334111. We need solicitation before the end of this fiscal year. It will be a 100% small business set-aside for computer equipment, including desktops, thinner laptops, lightweight laptops, thin clients, and tablets. And looking for a period of performance of a base year plus 4-year options, so a total period of performance of 5 years. This will be in the millions of dollars, this contract. I don't know that it'll reach the $100 million, but it'll be very, very, very large. And this is for all you IT providers who provide hardware. This is the first I know it's the first in the Department of Defense. No one else has gone in and asked the SBA for a waiver for computer equipment itself. So.
Is NAICS code definite on that one? Okay.
Yeah.
There's another NAICS code, 541519, that has an exception for IT value-added resellers. Familiar with that? That's a unique for IT value-added resellers that sell those types of equipment. That means that a company is small as long as they're under 150 employees. It's an exception to NAICS code, and that's the one that a lot of agencies use for those types of procurement. So 41111, is that $25 million size standard? Probably in that range.
Probably, and
okay.
This is the one where our paperwork went to SBA that they approved for.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Can't change it now, because they might get back and say they won't know.
Thank you.
Yeah. On this page, I have something called Emergent 2 Research and Development. DEA is always looking for some R&D, and areas where we're looking for in the next code is 541712, Research Development in the Physical, Engineering, and Life Sciences except Biotechnology field. So we're looking for transportation management and logistics. We're focusing on researching emerging technologies and applications in transportation management to reduce transportation costs and achieve logistics efficiencies, with a particular focus on inbound, new procurement shipments, and direct vendor delivery. For logistics, we're focusing on business process improvements and software solutions to identify and resolve medical logistics support challenges at low cost, and we're limiting that to non-pharmaceutical classes of medical supplies. We're looking for technologies to improve velocity, visibility, and DLA distribution, expeditionary, humanitarian, and disaster readiness services to the Department of Defense in the United States. The things I didn't mention in my talk was, in addition to providing combat logistics support support worldwide, we should provide humanitarian assistance and disaster relief around the world. So we were in Haiti for the earthquake, we were in Japan for the tsunami, and we were very, very active in helping the Northeast recover after Hurricane Sandy. We provide gasoline to fuel some of the gas stations so the citizens could gas up their cars. We contracted for just to pump out the New York subway, to operating, and light some apartment buildings in New York City. We provided cots, blankets, some items for different parts of the city as well during Hurricane Sandy. So for ways to research the ways we can actually do that type of work better. We've done in conjunction with FEMA, of course, but anything we can do to improve that we're looking for. This one down is what probably everybody here is interested in, the DLA 6 Enterprise Technology Solutions. You've probably seen the RFI for that. That's anticipated to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $500+ million over an 8-year period, I think, where we're at all of our, this code you were talking about, Joe, 541, 519. They're looking at trying to consolidate as much as we can. Since DLA is worldwide, we have offices everywhere, and a lot of different offices have contracts for the same thing. So we're trying to, instead of issuing 25 contracts to provide help desk support at the Tier 2 level, one for everybody, that everybody would then use, and then each of our offices would just have an order for their individual support off of this main contract. But now they have about 23 different task areas on that. If you've seen the RFI, you know how unwieldy it is. It's not going to hit the solicitation street anytime soon. We're going back and re-looking and re-evaluating all of things that were included on there to make sure that we're not more than we can chew with one big overarching contract. Maybe some of the business areas like cybersecurity or information assurance should be pulled out and maintain its own separate contract. So we really haven't figured out what our acquisition strategy for this is yet. We have a lot of information we got back in the RFI. A lot of companies submitted comments and suggestions, so we're going through all of that information as well. So it's still a requirement. I know it's been a requirement for the past 2 years, and we haven't really actually ever issued a solicitation yet. But it's not dead. We're just trying to figure out what the best way forward is with low risk for everybody. So it's just not there yet. Joe?
Would you still allow companies to respond to the RFI? I'm sure the RFI is closed.
It's closed. Oh, absolutely.
If people have good ideas,
absolutely, send them in.
Okay.
Absolutely. And if you flip 2 more pages, there's another key buy for some distribution, hardware and technical support at the depot out at Puget Sound, Washington State. And estimated somewhere between $1 and $5 million. Name for that is 541513. And see if we can set that aside for a service-disabled veteran-owned small business if we can. Page again for our distribution folks. Single wall boxes for sites, estimated between $5 and $10 million for a period of performance of 3 years. NAICS is 322211. So those are just a couple to highlight. There is, I guess, I don't know, 30 on the list to take a look at. A lot going on. Again, check FedBiz Op, check the alert system for those that you're interested in as much as you can. we have some solicitations, believe it or not, that go out for $2.50 all the way up to, $2.5 billion. Don't break the small dollar value ones for the large one. There's a lot of times the smaller ones add up to the large one. 1.2 million awards each year. I need all of you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation.
Oh, thank
being
you.
over.
Thank you for coming, and I think we still probably have a few more questions, and I just wanted to comment, thank you for putting this list together. This is a tremendous list of opportunities, and the one thing I did want to ask, is there contact information available for all of these opportunities, or if a company wants to get more information on any of these opportunities, what's the best way to do that? Is there more available in the forecast or online, or should they contact your office?
The best way is to contact the small business director at each supply chain.
Okay.
And that goes to the handout that you're going to send out with everybody's name and phone number.
Okay.
So if when you get the list, you have a DLA Aviation solicitation you're interested in, the DLA Aviation Small Business Director, John Henley, and his number is on this sheet over here. Or he's in the booklet, too.
Okay, excuse me. Are you saying that these are available now to the people on the webinar? Okay. It's possible, Claudia is telling me that it's possible to view the opportunities now on the webinar. Do you have to scroll to that screen, or can? Oh, you have been. Oh, okay. Okay. They'll send it out as an attachment. And does anyone in the room or online have further questions or comments?
I have a question. Sir, you mentioned cybersecurity, specifically about an RFP that may be coming out and how it might be pulled out of it. But also, let's say top 15 or so large organizations in the IT arena, one of those probably do most of your cybersecurity work.
Oh, I do.
I'm sorry. Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I would not know. That's a question. I don't. That's something you're interested in knowing?
Yeah, because teaming is always a good way to get into these very large organizations. That's the way I see it.
Let me tell you, ID the side.
Contracts, because then from there you know who the vendors are.
I'll give you vendors. Cybersecurity contractors. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I can get that.
And Amy, if you can communicate with Rosita that MBDA is available, if she would like to put together, or if you would like to put together an event where your prime contractors can qualify contractors, and you can give us any type of vetting criteria that you would like. We can bring to that event or webinar. We can bring qualified companies that they can amend to these. We can actually meet directly. Those companies can meet directly with your prime contractors for subcontracting. And
I will do that.
I mentioned that USAID has done something similar. Other agencies are doing that. Reminding the prime contractors that they have an obligation to subcontract to small businesses, and we're not just going to tell you you have to, but we're going to make it easier by introducing you to qualified businesses. So that's a resource we would love to provide to you.
Sure.
I'm sure that the MBDA clients would love that access as well.
Latest couple projects that we issued with subcontracting, our business requirement was, one of them was 43%. One of them was 50%. I think the other one was 28%. So depending on what it is, we're really, I got my numbers, we're really very forceful about making sure they play with small business because, it's a do.
Okay, we have another question?
Yes, where within DLA can I talk to someone about LED lighting products?
In Richmond, Data Aviation. For what reason, don't ask me why. Light is purchased out of aviation. There are some things, like in Land and Maritime, they buy stuff for land-based weapon systems and ships. But back before the 90s FEPR Act, we also had a training office in Dayton, Ohio, called the Defense Electronics Supply Center. So that mission was merged with the Columbus folks, so now they all do it together. And organizationally, for workload balance purposes, those people buying the electronic circuit boards and stuff under DLA Maritime. But it really had nothing to do with ships. It's just there organizationally, and that's where we put lighting. Lighting is down in Richmond.
Does it have any questions in the room or online? Okay, everyone, this concludes our session, and again, we will make sure that the recording of the webinar and all of the documents are available to you on our website or sent directly to you by email. Thank you, and have a great day.
For having me.